in morphology, in syntax, everywhere, in even in phonological distinctions, we depend on meaning to explain the grammatical categories and describe the grammar of the language. But when you talk about lexicon, the lexicographer cannot ignore the words. That means the lexical items. What is part of lexicon? Then what is a lexicon? A lexicon is, next slide, please. So when we are talking about dictionary is a written form. Like that, grammar is also for the written languages. We have written grammars, written dictionaries. But in fact, every language has its own grammar. Every language has its own lexicon. So they are inherent. They are intrinsic in the human mind, and every native speaker knows them, his grammar and his lexicon. And when we work with those languages, we will unravel those aspects as linguists. So the thing is that native speakers to unravel and make it explicit to the scientific world of linguists. Next slide, please. Yeah. So lexicon can be abstractly speaking, it is mental lexicon, but so when we study the word, its nature, its meaning, the theoretical basis is provided by lexicology, and but it is applied to make a dictionary. So lexicographer has to apply the theoretical basis of lexicology, what he understands about the word and the meanings, to make a dictionary. So lexicographers they cannot afford to ignore the meaning. So one has to have the knowledge about meaning. Then what is meaning here? Next slide, please. Okay, before going into the explanation of meaning, lexicology provides the theoretical basis for lexicography activities. Lexicological studies can draw general universals. Like in grammatical studies, we have universals. Similarly, we have general universals which are common to all the languages as far as lexical items are concerned. So it can be, the lexicological studies can be synchronic or diachronic, general or specific. Okay, next. It's a repetitive one, mental lexicon. Yeah. Then lexicographer, when we talk about dictionary, when you refer to a dictionary, we talk about words. So generally, when we talk about word, it is not easy to define, because in linguistics, what we say is cat is a word, cats is also a word, nation is a word, national is a word, nationalization is a word. So what is a word? And so it is very difficult for a linguist to explain what a word is. But it is very easy to give a definition of morpheme, because it is the smallest meaningful unit. So which cannot be further divided. So scientifically, a morpheme can be easily understood, but a word becomes a complex phenomena, a complex matter. So morpheme, as far as when we talk about morphology, a morpheme which is free in many languages can be understood as a word, but it is not true with all the languages, because languages are classified into inflectional and agglutinative and isolative. Depending on the inflectional uh, seriousness or complexity of the structure, then it becomes very difficult for us to identify the morphemes and identify the independent morpheme or a free morpheme. So it all depends on, when you work in the field of linguistics, then you have to identify exact the morpheme. So in linguistics, what we call it morpheme in morphology, when we come to lexicographic tradition, more or less, it is called the abstraction. It is more or less equivalent to lexeme. So there are so many terminological issues, that is a lexical item, lexeme, morpheme, word, so many things are there. But the distinction can be understood when you are really dealing with or preparing a dictionary or describing a language structure. So what a word is, the lexicographer cannot ignore this. He has to select his word. So in the next slide, we can see this next one. Next slide, please. Yeah, word is defined as an independent entity. It may be a free morpheme. It can be a compound also. It can be a combination. A combination can be a phrase. Sometimes, it is it is a clause also, which needs to be entered into the dictionary, and an idiom. So I'm giving you some of the things that's why it is very difficult for us to define in linguistics what a word is. But all these are understood by the lexicographer. Lexicographer has to take a free morpheme, a compound morpheme, a compound word that is a combination of two or more morphemes, or an idiom also, which gives a different kind of meaning when you are using that. So all these are concerned for the lexicographer. So lexicographer has to decide what a word is and what its meaning is. So the activity of compilation of dictionary is referred to as lexicography, as explained, and the compiler is known as lexicographer. It is only the one which is really made outside, in the sense the language has it, the native speaker knows it, but now it is the responsibility or duty of the lexicographer to bring it out to the knowledge of the references. That means the user. So what kind of activity, how do you make it? Then you look at it, we have inherited from ancient times. That's why it is lineage. So the lineage is that we have inherited from ancient times the oral tradition, because until the writing systems have come into existence with the invention of advancement of technology, that is the printing, and the printing of Brahma press in Germany, that was the first thing. So we have access to the written word, which can be collected and compiled in a book form. Whereas in olden days, everything has to be remembered in the mind. So we had as I told you, the four Vedanga traditions, Siksha, Vyakarana, and Chandas, and Nirukta. They are to be culturally transmitted orally. So those who are interested in these, they had to learn. And that's why the kind of knowledge that is being transmitted is not written form that as we can refer today. So it has really changed our world perspective, and with that began the revolution. Now we are in the computational lexicography, which is the latest revolution, which helps us to prepare the dictionary. It has transformed totally our perspective of dictionary making. But I'm confining, I'll just end it with that, with a small note. But right now I am concerned with the traditional approaches which we have internalized into Indian dictionary making systems. Okay, next slide, please. So lexicography preparation is not like, there are only few kinds of rules or practices or theoretical backgrounds. There are, in fact, many. If you study the lexicographic manual of lexicography by Zugusta, or any recent books also, what you find is there are so many kinds of methods that are used. So we talk about not only preparation, how you select, that means collect and select and compile. All these have certain rules and regulations. But in olden days, I begin with the ancient lexicographic tradition in the next one. And that's why when you make a dictionary, since they are reference works, what happens? we always refer to a dictionary for what? Basically for meaning. But meaning alone is not the only thing that we refer for. We also refer for the spelling, for the pronunciation, for its usage, its context. So they are normative as well as descriptive. Why they are prescriptive, normative? That means what is the correct pronunciation? What is then in linguistics we don't agree this word correct, but then because language is varied, there are different kinds of pronunciations, there is a lot of variation in the language, so language can be varied. But when you make a dictionary, you are prescriptive. You say that this is the way you have to pronounce, this is the way you have to spell it out, this is the meaning, so on and so forth. So you give an example also, but that example alone is not the whole, but it gives us an understanding. So what? How do we understand? We understand the meaning of a particular word. I'm using it in the general sense. A particular word by its not by isolation, but by its other sense relations. So we have to understand its other sense relations, but that itself is a big topic. I cannot go into the details of those sense relations, but now and then, wherever it is required, I will explain. So, sorry. So we have to understand the form as well as the meaning. What is the meaning? Now, you see, when the study of meaning in linguistics, we generally call semantics, but it is also called semasiology, and I'm not going into the details of them. Next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. Uh, the meaning is studied in many disciplines. That's why linguists have in fact ignored, particularly the descriptive linguists and the transformational linguists have ignored the meaning. Nowadays, it is now no more ignored. It is by a part and parcel of the study of human language. But since it is studied in philosophy, psychology, sociology, anthropology, logic, and many other disciplines, sometimes we don't know what exactly is the meaning. So the Indian theories of meaning is described by Kunjunni Raja as, you know, with the details of taking Artha as meaning and Shabda as the form. This has been explained by Ogden and Richards in a triangular form, which we all refer to when we teach semantics or lexicography. So there is a concept. The concept is understood, or concept. It can be concept. It can be the meaning. It can be the reference. Whatever you call it. It has a form and it has a thing, object. That means in Sassurian terms, it is the signify, which has a signifier and a signified. That means the relation between the sense and that means the form and what it indicates, the object, is not, there's no one-to-one correlation. It's not direct at all. So what we indicate as an object is arbitrary. And in many languages, that's why we have the concept, but all languages differ in their form and in their exhibition of the what the thing, exact thing. So the meaning is thus the reference, and it is only the relationship between the symbol and the thing is only indirect. Next slide, please. So with this now, this understanding of what exactly, a little bit of knowledge about morpheme, word, and meaning is necessary for us to now understand the ancient Indian lexicographic tradition. So as I told you, Nirukta is one of the six Vedangas, but it is said to be a commentary for Nighantu. Nighantu is the more ancient available dictionary. That means the dictionary, vocabulary, glossary, and thesaurus. All these are various forms of dictionaries. And we have in Indian tradition two main terms, Nighantu and Kosha. Nighantu and Kosha. but many of them, when we see the history of individual languages, most of the languages have used kosha in the beginning than Nighantu. But the Nighantu is a technical term for the Vedic text, which was compiled by unknown people. We don't know who they were. And since it's being the etymology and the etymological commentary and the meanings were explained by Yaska, we generally attribute, the scholars generally attribute the Nighantu to Yaska. But Yaskas is called Nirukta, like Panini's grammar, Astadhyayi, which has earlier scholars. These also have many earlier scholars. But what has come to us traditionally, what is available is the Nighantu, that is the earliest kind of dictionary with synonyms. But they are in prose form. Interestingly, these are in prose form. So what did they do? This when you look at the Nighantu, you find that all these names are the synonyms of so and so. They give you the head word at the end of it. I will read out one example for you a little later. So now I'm talking about the organization. That means the structure of the Nighantu. There are actually 3 kandas only. 3 kandas. Okay. So one is called Naighantuka, another is called Naigama, and third is called Daivata. But Naighantuka is very elaborate and it has many words in it. That means it is subdivided into 5 more adhyayas. Some say 3 or some say 5, and Naigama and Daivata are one each. So the first, it has 17 main entries, but each entry has 21, sometimes it ran into 100 also. So we have all those synonyms for a particular thing. So what they have described is, in the tradition, we don't understand the meanings exactly, because as time passes through, we lose our interaction with the words. They become archaic, they become obsolete. So in order to know them, somebody should have recorded them earlier with the usage or with the explanation, with its meaning. And that's why, how do you understand? In modern linguistics also, in modern lexicographic tradition also, we say that we understand or define a word by giving another word. That means this is called synonym. There are no exact synonyms as far as scientific lexicography is concerned. All lexicographers, all scientists, all linguists say that no 2 words are similar totally. But still, lexicographer has to depend on synonyms, and synonyms play an important role. They are used in circularity. The theory is called circularity. So substitution. They are also called substitutability. That means one is substituted for the other. So they are all grouped together under one head word, and these are all synonyms, give the same meaning for that particular. So a known is explained with all unknown ones are explained with a known ones. So this is how the synonyms dictionary will work. So in this, he has taken, the that means he means who. We don't know who the author was or the compiler was. The Nighantu Karta has taken all these forms, you see, 17, 22, and 30 entries, each one spreading to certain subdivisions. And they have, I can tell you one example. For example, Ratri, I'm sorry. Prithvi means earth. And the Nighantu begins with that. So in that, he has given 21 words, and head word is Prithvi. So Gauh, Ma, Jma, Ksha, Ksho, Kshiti, Avani, Urvi, Prithvi, Mahi, Ripaha, Aditihi, Ila, Niruti, Bhumi, Pusa, Gatuhu, Gotra, iti Prithvi. Ekavimshati Prithvi Namadeyani. Ekavimshati means 21. So if you are familiar, if you have studied a little bit of Sanskrit tradition, you will know that Prithvi Namani, that means Prithvi is the head word, and all these are, since we have understood what Prithvi is, Prithvi means earth. So all these are synonyms of earth. But in Telugu tradition, we use only 9. The poets have been using 9 words which indicate earth as synonyms, but other 12 are not used at all. So like that in Kannada, in Malayalam, or in Bengali, in Odia, we have those names. Avani, people also put these names as girls' names, as Avani, Prithvi, and all those names are there. So we like that, if I have to explain, that will become a big problem. But the thing is, Yaska has given etymological explanation, but linguists do not really consider these etymologies as scientific, as as you all know. But at least we can infer the semiotic meaning of those words, and how for some of them he has given the Rigvedic or Vedic evidences, illustrations, so we can understand what they are. So the study itself is very vast. We cannot go into the details. You see, for example, the Naigamakanda has only 6 entries. The total number of words are 274 or something like that. So each one has several synonyms running into tens and sometimes hundreds. So Daivata Kanda also has very few, total words are 151. So next one, please. I don't know if I have any time. So Lakshman Sarup, if anybody interested, they can read it in English. This Nighantu and the Nirukta is with a big commentary in English by Lakshman Sarup. It is published by Motilal Banaras Das. Next one. Next slide, please. So next one is Amarakosha. Amarakosha is the most influential work in verse form, in sloka form, in poetic form. So this, almost all Indian languages have employed this method and prepared dictionaries in a later period. It is also known as Namalinga Anusashana. That means we don't have, interestingly, Nighantu has verbs, but Namalinga Anusashana, that means Amarakosha has no verbs in it. It has only Nama and it's a Linga. Yeah. So this has 3 main chapters, that is Kandas. Each in turn has Vargas and Upavargas. The total number of verses we find in this are 1469. How it is influential, I will tell you. Next slide, please. I'll go to the Indian tradition. I will get back to this particular thing maybe when we have question answer sessions. So this is the first kind of thesaurus. Actually, Amarakosha was the one which influenced Roger to prepare his thesaurus. If you read his preface, you will find that note. Okay, and I can't give you more details now. Let us go to the next slide, please. Lexicographic tradition in Indian languages. If some of you are familiar with your own languages, or more than 2 or 3 languages, if you are familiar, you will know that this Sanskrit tradition of Amarakosha, not the Nighantu, is there in many languages, where almost all of them, except Malayalam in Dravidian, have dictionaries of, that means koshas prepared in verse form. Kannada has it, Tamil also has, and Telugu has great many. It all began with verse dictionaries only. Verse means Amarakosha style means you group them as synonyms and make it in a poem. And the Chandas provides us different kinds of poetry. That means what kind of poem it is. So when I come to Telugu, I will tell you what kind of, we are not concerned with the Chandas part here, but we can say, since we talk about verse, what is that poem particularly? But it is not that many people think that Akaradi, that means alphabetical order, was introduced by the Western scholars. That is not true. Tamil has it and Malayalam had it prior to them. And even Sanskrit has them in a different way. So they used to have it at the end of it, and other things. When you study them closely, you will understand that alphabetical order also was intrinsic in the tradition of Sanskritic tradition or Indian tradition. Next slide, please. So the bilingual dictionaries In fact, they are the ones before monolingual dictionaries. In many languages, we have the bilingual dictionaries with the influence of the Western scholars. Most of them are missionaries and administrators. And the most influential works are Winslow for Tamil, as you all know, Kittel for Kannada, Gundet for Malayalam, and C.P. Brown for Telugu. So all these, they are almost during the same period. They were so influential that Indians have taken up interest in preparing dictionaries, monolingual dictionaries as well as bilingual dictionaries, and they started preparing them in alphabetical order. But we still have that Amarakosha tradition even today. That is a different one, of course. And nowadays it is not in the verse form, but we have the again. We'll go back to the Nigantu tradition that when you prepare a synonyms dictionary or synonyms and antonyms dictionary, you have them organized in a prose form. Okay, so this is the modern lexicography activity. Has various dimensions, and we have different kinds of dictionaries with the influence of these Westerners. Uh, it is actually we already had dictionaries of medicine, dictionaries of a specialized item, so on and so forth. If you read, look into the details in Arya Singh as a simple reference work, you will find many of them. But the exact understanding and the development of these varieties of or kinds of types of dictionaries have come into existence with the Western influence. The monolingual, bilingual, comparative, etymological, uh, comparative also includes diachronic, dialectal, specialized, encyclopedic, concordances, etc. All these have come into existence with the post, that means with the beginning of 19th century, with the influence of the Westerners. They were so interested in our languages. In fact, the light they threw to look at the language structures is very amazing, because somebody worked with me on Odia bilingual dictionaries. So I could see that, the historical tradition of Odia, or in fact Gujarati, also has verse forms, and you can see the range of the dictionaries in these languages. We all have all written languages, almost all written languages, whether it is Indo-Aryan or Dravidian, we have the same influence of more or less. People say that Tamil has less influence, but when you go into the details and study them, the history written by Gregory James, I guess, yeah, history of Tamil lexicography, you will find how the lexicographic tradition has developed in Tamil. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah. So I don't know how much time is left out. I will quickly go through Telugu lexicography. It all began like in, actually, the interesting thing is, in many languages, the lexicograph tradition and grammatical tradition are more or less simultaneous, or with a little difference. In fact, in some languages, it is lexicography is earlier than grammatical tradition. But as in Malayalam, Telugu also, the literary tradition has begun in 11th century. The first grammar appeared written in Telugu appeared. That means a grammar in Telugu for Telugu appeared in 13th century, whereas the Telugu lexicography began in the 17th century. And these are koshas in verse form, but the vocabulary is very small, and it confined to a particular aspect of the Telugu vocabulary. That means Telugu vocabulary is classified in the before 13th century itself, is classified as having 5 varieties in it. That is true with almost many languages, particularly written languages, except Tamil. So we have Tatsama, Tadbhava, Desya, and this one is called Atsa Telugu. That means pure Telugu. Desya is native. Tatsama is similar to Sanskrit and Prakrit. Tadbhava is changed version of the Tatsama form, and Desya is the native words, and in which this Atsa Telugu is part of it. and this is called pure Telugu. And then we have the borrowed words Anyadesha. So Gramya, that is the vulgar, the rustic, is also part of the Desya variety. So we have all these kinds of words classified by the grammarians and the lexicographers. But this dictionary, that the first dictionary is compiled in the 17th century by different scholars. They are all poets. They were all poets also. And they prepared the small dictionaries in the Amarakosha style only, but for Atsa Telugu words only. And that is very interesting. And why it is so, we have no answer. Why it happened, nobody. Actually, how there are poems also. Atsa Telugu poetry is a particular genre which has emerged in Telugu literature. And along with that, this lexicographic tradition has begun, interestingly. So the earliest dictionary, that means verse form, was prepared by Kavi Chaudappa in Telugu. It is in the particular prosody, Chandas, called Sisa. Whereas Kannada, in Kannada, Ranna, I'm told, I read somewhere that Ranna has prepared, composed only 30 poems, 10 or 12 poems. That is in Kanda. The poem name is Kanda. The verse name is Kanda. So whereas this one, Sisa, is a longer one, bigger one. It has 2 parts in it. So that means it incorporates more words in it. Okay, next. So there are similarities. You can see how these verse dictionaries have been compiled in various languages, except Malayalam. I have read it some in the when I am reading the historical notes. If I am wrong, you can correct me. That Malayalam has no verse dictionaries. And now let us talk about the bilingual dictionary tradition. It has begun with Western scholars in the 19th century. The works that are prepared by various scholars. They are prepared. Actually, that was the time the French were there, the Dutch were there, the Portuguese were there, and the missionaries and others, they prepared the dictionaries, but they are not available now. Even if they are available, nobody generally refers to them. They are very small in number. That means very, very small compilations with no references. That means nobody refers to them. English bilingual dictionaries are very popular. They are even used even today. And interestingly, the methodologies used here are again varied. In fact, C.P. Brown was helped by many scholars. He is rated as one of the great scholars who contributed to Telugu language and literature. He wrote a grammar. He brought out many forgotten works. He published them. In spite of all that, when C.P. Brown compiled his dictionary and published it in 1857, it was actually after the vowels, the consonants begin. So the consonants were given in the varga. Varga means what? Kakha, gagha together, and cha cha ja ja together, ta ta da da together. So why he has given? He wrote it in his preface that this language is interesting, where sometimes they pronounce ka, sometimes they pronounce ga. So then I have gone through his entire dictionary. I found out that, you see, they are all used in sandhi processes. You get ba versus ba because of sandhi. And how and why he missed it. And there is the concept of nasalization. So if you don't understand these things, he failed somewhere, and he prepared the dictionary. But that is the unique methodology. To prepare a dictionary in the Varga style was unique to William Brown. And then we have the other one, William Brown. William Brown's is a very small dictionary. I have brought it out as a unique dictionary because though he compiled it in Telugu only, he has taken that, he said that there are only 2 vowels in Telugu, a and a. The rest are semi-vowels. That means he put them under the, headings of ya and va. That means like if you, when you are a linguist, you will know that you have them e, a or e, a. That means on glide articulation of a glide vowel. That means semi vowel, yeah. And with u, o, you will get va pronunciation. So when he heard the oral, that means the language as being spoken, what happened? He thought that you have to give the head word with for E A as ya, and for o with va. But that is wrong. He has compiled his dictionary. There is nothing wrong in it. But then what happens? It affects the grammar. It affects the rules. So I wrote a paper way back how he has misunderstood and said that only there are two vowels in the language, which is a wrong conception. And then Galati prepared his dictionary in the Roman. Though Telugu has its own script, its own alphabets, he has prepared it in Roman, and that dictionary became very popular. It is very difficult for you to read Roman head word, its entire illustration, the entire entry, and then its illustrations and all that. But since you are interested in lexicography, you will go through that and you will find the interesting examples and how he dealt with every meaning, and they are very unique to him, whereby you understand the society that existed during his period, the Telugu society. So dictionaries give us not only the meaning, how to use the word, how to use the meaning, they will give us the society. And taking this spirit, way back in 2001, I published an article or two articles about the situation of society as depicted in Nighantu and Amarakosha, and the situation of women as depicted in Amarakosha. So you can infer a lot of information from the dictionaries about the social structure and social. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the monolingual dictionaries tradition also began approximately during the same period with their influence. And then since the language, as it is true with Tamil, Malayalam and Kannada, those days in the 19th century, we also have what Ferguson has, the high variety and low variety. That is the Granthika versus the colloquial, which was identified in the 13th century in Ketana's grammar, the first Telugu grammar. I translated it into English. So the details are given there. The dialect, and then we have this interesting one, which was, I think, with the influence of Grierson. V.H. Krishnamurti has initiated dialect dictionaries. Later on, other languages have taken this spirit, occupational vocabularies, different occupational. Though the society is stratified into many in the Indian society based on caste, other things, region, and many other things. He has taken occupation and the region as two methods for collecting the data on agriculture, weaving, because agriculture is pan-Indian everywhere, and all castes people will do agriculture, and then weaving, fisheries, carpentry. We have 8 to 11 volumes, and some more volumes are expected. They are in line. I don't know whether they will be finished or not. Some they were assigned to some scholars, which were never completed. So these are all published and they are available with the Telugu University. And agriculture prepared by Professor V.H. Krishnamurti is most popular, and the preface is actually used as a reference work, text work for the students to understand lexicography. So then we have the etymological dictionary in the lines of Dravidian etymological dictionary, and 8 volumes have been published in those lines. Next, please. So when I'm talking about Telugu, I think the more or less we have all these kinds of dictionaries in almost all the Indian languages. So we have concordances, but not like for English. English concordances are amazing, but we have for Nannaya and for Tikkana, also for Sri Krishna Devaraya work also. But they have some limitations which I cannot explain here. They do not give each and every word of the author. That much I can say. And then we have you see, India, particularly Dravidian languages, have a great tradition of inscriptions, and inscriptional grammatical studies have been done for inscriptional languages. at greater length than preparation of the dictionaries. But we have a dictionary of inscriptional languages compiled by Ishwar Dattu, and Telugu Sahitya Academy, Telugu Academy, all these were established, like even in Pune for Sanskrit, and in other languages, when you refer to Ramadhar Singh, simultaneously, or Katre, Sumitra Katre's article, you will find that simultaneously central government has given funds and assigned dictionary making, different kinds of dictionary makings to individual languages. But some of them were, they could bring out, particularly Telugu Academy has brought out subject dictionaries, and with great difficulty of recently in the sense, it's almost a decade or something like that. uh, yeah, Telugu English, and English Telugu dictionaries are published. But then, sorry, yeah, we still have, because of Telugu has a great tradition of verse form. We prasa dictionaries, that means rhymes. Rhyme dictionaries based on rhymes are in popular. Recently, 5 years ago, when dictionary was published, it has come to third reprint. So similarly, we have other kinds of dictionaries which I cannot explain. There are many different kinds of dictionaries, and uh, dictionaries of Puranic names, specialized dictionaries, and synonyms dictionaries, synonyms and antonyms dictionaries. Still, the whole problem is, except for Tamil and Kannada, we don't have, for Telugu, maybe Malayalam also you have a comprehensive reference dictionary, but we still lack, because though the journalists were involved, the journalism has brought out several modern words into light with meanings. Lot of work is done. Still, we don't have a comprehensive Telugu dictionary, and every scholar always points out to this, that Telugu is lacking having a comprehensive reference dictionary with modern meanings. But however, I would like to also close, if I have 2 minutes time, I would like to end this. The olden days, scholars, either individually or as a group, had to take a lot of trouble in compiling the dictionaries, and they used to collect the data, the words, and in card form or in the written form and all that. But now with the computers, the word nets, so many scholars are working in that. I'm very poor in that, but as far as common understanding goes, the word nets are built, and we have a great corpora, so that almost the entire written and spoken forms can be stored, uh, and it will be easy for us, because of parts of speech taggings. They are working, many people are working in but Telugu also. uh, Hyderabad Central University Cards Department has been preparing these POS taggings and all that. So we hope that the semantic disambiguation and kinds of dictionaries can be prepared by the present computational lexicography and computational linguistics revolutions in the modern day. Thank you, one and all. Yeah. Oh, sorry. There is this observations and conclusions. Of course, it is redundant. So what I have covered is that dictionary has have used several words for dictionary, lexicon, vocabulary, glossary, thesaurus. They have their own limitations and expansions, but the general term is dictionary. So the problem methodology used is semantic grouping or alphabetical order, and then methodologies vary in compilation, ranging from one word, one meaning to bilingual, multilingual, where you can include spelling, pronunciation, grammatical category, illustrations, descriptions, and other things. So uh, I think it's redundant. Okay, I don't need to repeat it. Thank you. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I thank the organizers, all of you, Dr. Professor Karunakaran, Professor Balasubramanian, Dr. Ravi Shankar, the coordinator and my good friend since ages, Yeah, that means ages means 40, more than 40 years, as you mentioned. And remember fondly all the friends, all the professors from Annamalai University, Madurai Kamaraj University, Renuga Devi, and Coimbatore, and Tanjavur, Karthikeyan, everybody. I extend my greetings, my regards, my best wishes to you all, and pranam, vanakkam, namaste. Bye.
Thank you, Professor Usha Devi. We are very happy to listen to a very good and excellent and very quiet presentation from you. Now it's time for the audience to come out with their questions. And as we always request you, please be brief and get more information. Thank you. Now to the audience.
Yes, I'm ready. I'm ready here.
Hello,
Yes, sir.
Please.
can you hear me? I'm Balasubramaniam from
Yes,
Sir, please.
Chidambaram.
yes,
Please.
I am colleague of Dr. Professor Usha Devi, colleague of Professor Usha Devi in Telugu University.
yes, sir.
Did you remember me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have not forgotten at all. I always remember.
Really? Yes, really.
I have mentioned. Thank you. Yeah. Sir, please.
Can you see me?
I
Here the
can't,
video is
can't see you. Please come on
broken.
the.
Can you see me?
No, sir. Please come.
No, sir, video is in mute. Please open the video.
Yeah, click on the video, sir.
Oh, video somehow it is off.
Unmute your video, sir.
How is your husband? How is your daughter? You remember?
Yes,
You have
yes,
a
sir.
daughter, huh?
She's fine. Yeah. We still have talk. Sir, I
Don't worry.
want to see you. Please come onto the picture.
Yes, that's why I don't know.
You can ask a
This,
question.
that cannot
Sir, you
be
can ask
opened.
sir, you can ask your question, sir. You are clearly hearing your audio.
Yes, sir. You can comment otherwise. Sir,
So you can raise your question, sir.
Sorry. No, just I wanted.
Okay. Then
I wanted to see her also, but probably somehow
sir,
your
you
video is
can
discontinued. Please, others can.
Now
I
it is,
will
sir, video.
try again whether I can
okay.
connect
Now,
with you.
Sir, you can
With
ask
other,
Dr. Tennarasu. Dr. Tennarasu. Or another gentleman,
Mr. Rajendran.
Mr. Kotesh.
Hello.
Please ask your question.
Okay. Shall I ask? Yeah, Professor Usha Devi, of course, I know her since long. The days of actually opening the Telugu University, I have heard her lectures for a long time. This time, actually, it is a very unique lecture by her. I mean, concentrating mainly on lexicography in the context of Telugu lexicography. She has really put forward